Hi there, guys. It's Phil, and today we're going to look at Chapter 5 and the Organization of Congress. It's a very long chapter, but we're going to do a very short version of it and just hit the main points that you need for your quizzes and assignments. Don't forget that on Thursday you have a test, which means that you need to do all the quizzes and assignments up to Chapter 4 plus Chapter 24. Okay? If you have any questions about that, please let me know. But let's get started. In this first page here, which is actually page 2, if you actually go to the first page, there's just, some information about what the different things are that we're going to study. Important thing you need to remember, we have a bicameral legislature, which means you have two legislative bodies. You have, which together are called Congress, okay? You have two houses. You have the Senate, which has 100 members, right? Two for each state. Those senators are going to be there for 6 years, and they have a little bit more power to pass bills, and they move a little bit faster, and most of the power is going to go to the minority, okay? And then we have the House of Representatives, which is divided depending on the population of each state, so it can change, okay? And they're there, they have votes every 2 years, okay? And they represent districts within the states. Districts are like little areas within the states. And they have a few more rules that limit debate. And also the majority rule is a bit more important. Now, in order for a bill to become a law, then both houses need to agree, not just about the bill, but the language of the bill in order for it to pass. And here you have some pictures of the US Capitol. And then you have the appointments here of all the representatives depending on state population. Okay, so it's a long process that that plays into how it is that we get our representatives. Something else that's important to know about Congress is, when does the session of Congress begins? That means, when do they begin working? Well, every session begins on January 3rd, okay? The 20th Amendment set this date, and the session lasts for 1 full year. And if they want to stop, all the members of Congress need to vote, okay, to stop working. The president does have the power to bring them back, though. The president does have the power to bring them back. As far as membership, the House of Representatives has 435 members, 435. You can't go more than this, okay? They need to be 25 years or older. You have to be a citizen for at least 7 years and a legal resident of the state which you are representing. For the Senate, and the elections are every 2 years, okay? And these are the even number years, so 2010, 2012, 2014, and the elections are always in November. If a representative dies while in office, they can hold a special election, which is outside these times. Okay, so if you're following along, I'm on page 4. Like I said, I'm giving you just the main points, okay? But just so you know what page we're on, we are on page 4. How do we figure out how many people get to be in the House of Representatives? Well, every 10 years, the United States has a census, which counts how many people are in each state. In fact, this year is a census year. And a friend of mine sent me a video. They work for the Census Bureau. They made a video urging people to answer the census, because depending on the census, that's how you're going to get your representatives in Washington. Okay? The name for this is reapportionment. Okay? Because they need to appoint all, the different numbers depending on who is in each state and who isn't. And they give an example of how Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, and Missouri lost seats, okay, after the 2010 census. So the Midwest of America had a little bit less influence in the making of the law. So that's very important. And remember, there's that top number, 435. When the House began, there were only 64 members, but the population grew and grew and grew. Now we have 435, and you can't go more than this. So what happens instead is that they need to figure out how to divide this, okay? So they make this decision within themselves. Out of the 435, how many are going to California? How many are going to Kansas? How many are going to Wyoming? Depends on the population of these states, okay? Another way that they determine representatives is something called redistricting, okay? And this means that I create new lines to say where a district begins and where one ends. Because remember, each representative has a power within a district. So if you look at the map, you see California has 53, okay, representatives. So maybe this part is one district, this part is one district, this part is one district, etc., etc. It moves like that. Now, Wyoming, which we mentioned before, only has one, or Montana, because the population is not that big. So the whole state is considered a district. But districts change, people move. Sometimes a neighborhood or a number of neighborhoods are better to live in, maybe they're not so good to live in. So people have to keep figuring out what the new districts are, okay? And they can refigure these districts in the middle of a census or not. On page 5, they talk about this redistricting, okay? And what are a lot of things that can happen with this? There's a lot of things, a lot of issues with this because there's no clear rules. Some people think that a district should be based on race. So if there's more Black people in this one area, as soon as it becomes more white, boom, let's draw a line right there. Some people think it's based on population. So maybe my neighborhood here, Putantan, has a lot of people. The next neighborhood doesn't have so many. So boom, we're going to cut the line and say this is a district and the other area is another district. But districts are bigger than just one neighborhood, okay? It's almost like a zona, like here in Sao Paulo, you have the east side, west side. It's a little bit bigger, okay? And they argue, hey, should small districts have the same power as large district? Okay, one person, one vote. So there's a lot of confusion about this because there aren't any clear rules. And especially when districts are based on race, this can give either the Democrats or the Republicans more power, because usually whites vote more Republican and Blacks vote more Democrats. So if you cut a district right where the race line is, it can give a lot of power to one party versus the other, which leads to gerrymandering. Okay, gerrymandering. They made a point of saying this 2 times, so maybe this will be on your quiz. Why do you have this name gerrymandering? And you can see here that it's traced to Elbridge Gerry, who signed a redistricting plan that gave his party an advantage over the Federals. The artist Gilbert Storch's gerrymander was published in a newspaper. He thought the outline looked like a salamander, and he added a head and claws to give it the popular label of a gerrymander. Not a salamander, but a gerrymander. And you see how strange this district looks? But again, it's because he knew that, hey, more people that are going to vote for me are in this area, so I'm going to make it easier for them to vote for me by making that one of the districts of my candidate, okay? This is called gerrymandering. It's something that is frowned upon in politics. People do not like this because it does give power to one party versus the other. Sometimes it takes away power from certain, excuse me, from certain groups. So people do not like this. Some ways that you can gerrymander, you can pack, okay? This is called packing. And it says putting all the voters of the opposition party in one district, so they will have all the votes of the other districts, okay? So if I know that, let's imagine even Butanta is a neighborhood, but okay, let's imagine it's a district. And there are 100 people here that are Democrats and 50 people, okay? Obviously, if there's a vote, the Democrats are always gonna win that election. So I say to myself, because I'm a Republican, let's make a division, boom, where the Republicans live. So now the Republicans are part of another district that maybe it was 80 Republicans and 100 Democrats. Now that district has 130 Republicans and only 100 Democrats. So I can have more power in that district and get more things happening that are going to be good for me. Does that make sense? If you have questions about gerrymandering, please leave it in the comments or WhatsApp. But basically, it's kind of a complex system, but you get the idea. I'm moving, it's as if I'm moving votes to my side without moving the people. Okay? So cracking is the same idea. It's packing and cracking. I'm just kind of trying to divide these districts so that more votes go to one area and not the other. Okay, packing keeps everybody together. Okay, so if I need another 50 votes, I'm just gonna suck them into my district. Or if I see that, hey, this district is kind of equal, I'll divide it and I'll make two districts. And I'll keep my district that has my people and my votes, okay? Packing and cracking. As far as membership to the Senate, how is that organized? Okay, well, to be a Senate member, you need to be 30 years or older. You need to be a citizen for 9 years, and you need to be a legal resident of the state. Voting is also in November. Even numbered years, 2010, okay, numbers like that, 0, 2, 4, 6, etc. But it's every 6 years, okay? If a member dies, then the governor of that state can have their special election, okay? And remember that senators, they control laws for the entire state, not just a congressional district, okay? And how are they paid? Well, in the beginning, very little, $6 a day. In 91, they voted for a pay raise of over 20,000, 23,000 to be exact. And James Madison, he wanted a bill or a constitutional amendment saying, hey, these guys can't just keep having their salary up and up and up. So the 27th Amendment from 1992 said that, okay, you can ask for a pay raise, but it's only going to happen in the next cycle. So this keeps them maybe thinking, well, I'm not going to see the money. It's going to be for the next person, and maybe I'm not going to be elected next election. So it's a way to check that they don't just keep increasing and increasing and increasing. Problem is that senators usually get elected a lot and they stay senators for a very long time. So it's a good plan, doesn't always work. In 1990, the average member of Congress earned about $174,000 a year. What are some privileges of these members? Well, if they're going to work, they can't be arrested except if it's treason or a felony. Felony is a federal crime. A breach of peace, maybe they decide to shoot people. Okay, cannot do that. They can't be sued for anything that they say in Congress, but if it's outside of Congress, then yes. So I can't lie about somebody outside of Congress, like if I'm giving an interview and I want to say something bad about people that's not true. Of course, I can be sued, but in the Congress, whatever I say is protected. They also have a vote to bar an elected congressman if they feel that congressman doesn't meet the requirements. Maybe they're not old enough or they're not really citizens. Okay. They can also bar a member, but only for high crimes. Okay. Which would be treason, things like that. They can move to censor. Maybe they don't like somebody's behavior, so they can just shut them up for a little bit. But it's not something that happens all of the time. The members of Congress, I'm at the bottom of page 8 of chapter 5, lesson 1. Just to review, in total, there are 535, okay, voting members, 100 senators, 435 representatives. There's 5 delegates from DC, Washington, DC, Guam, American Samoa, the Northern Marianas, and the Virgin Islands, and 1 commissioner from Puerto Rico, because these are territories, but they don't have a vote, but they can debate, they can introduce bills, etc. They just don't have a vote. What is the characteristic of these people? Well, they're mostly lawyers, as you would imagine. Mostly white, middle-aged men, okay? But this is improving. There's more diversity nowadays. For example, back in the late 50s, only 15 women were in Congress, 3%, okay? They were representatives, in fact. And now there are 100, okay, 2013, probably more now in 2020, which make up 19%. So this is good. Kind of reflects the changes in the country. How does re-election happen? Okay, like I said, most members stay for life because re-election is a lot easier. Okay, it's tough to get in, but once you're in, it's very easy to stay in. These people are called incumbents, by the way. Those are the ones that are already in office. Why is it easier? Well, when they're in there, they have a lot of more contacts, in support to raise money for their campaigns. They can gerrymander. Remember the gerrymandering? So they have the power to do this, so they can shift more votes in their favor. People know their face more because they're more in the media than others. They can also solve local problems, which makes people happy. Like, oh, that's the guy that solved my local problem. And because sometimes people just believe in them, okay? And another useful thing for representatives these days is the internet, okay? So people have websites, they have Facebook, they do live chats, town hall meetings, so they can connect directly with their constituents, okay? Constituent is a word that's important in government. Those are the people that politician serves, his constituents. So now we're moving to lesson 2. Okay, we're moving to lesson 2, which is going to talk about the House of Representatives and what exactly the House of Representatives does. The House of Representatives is remember, it's the one with 435 people, okay? And it starts with this, the rules of the House. Well, first off, the leader of the House is called the Speaker, okay? The Speaker is the third in line for the presidency. So if the president dies or can't be president, and then the vice president can't be president, the Speaker becomes the new president, okay? The Speaker must be a member of the majority power in the House. So if there's more Democrats that were voted into the House of Representatives, then the speaker is going to be a Democrat. If there's more Republicans that were voted in the last election to the House, the Republican will be the House Speaker. What are the rules? Well, Jefferson wrote the manual for it, and they're called the complex rules. This is on page 2. In the complex rule, they're printed every 2 years, and they can change from year to year, but the basic ones are they can limit how much a representative can talk because it's a lot of people. Okay, so usually 5-minute speeches. Leaders can vote without consulting everyone, and this helps the bills move forward. But there's many mini laws that they can make every new session, so that things work out fine. Okay, things work out fine. Inside the House of Representatives, we also have committees. Okay, and what is a committee? They work together to shape the bills because the House is so big, and also there can be districts that are very close to each other, and they may have similar problems. So a committee is made up of various representatives working together to try to solve a problem, create a bill, and things like that. Okay, so that's one way that they can work to help their constituents. And what is the importance of party affiliation? A party, Democrat or Republican affiliation, is your connection to them. Well, first, the House is split. Okay, the Republicans sit on one side, Democrats on the other. Usually independents and other parties are in the middle. The majority party picks the leaders, okay, and usually they create new rules. For example, Newt Gingrich, when he became the party leader, the speaker during the Bill Clinton era, he created the Contract with America. We studied this last year. Nancy Pelosi later became the speaker, and she decided to have more power in her office than in the committees. So each party really dictates how it is that the House of Representatives is run, how legislative work is done, who gets to be in different committees. So it's important to know what the majority is in the House of Representatives to know what type of laws are going to be passed in America. So we got 6 goals in the House, okay? This is on page 4 of lesson 2. 6 goals: organizing and unifying party members, scheduling work, making certain that lawmakers are present for key floor votes, distributing and collecting information, keeping the House in touch with the president, and influencing lawmakers to support their party positions. So we're going to start with the speaker. This is the most powerful leader. What are the speaker's responsibility? Okay, first, they're chosen in a caucus. It's a closed meeting. So all the leaders of the majority power party will get together and decide who is going to be our voice, who's going to be our leader. Okay, Nancy Pelosi at the moment is the one for the Democrats. She has the power to say who speaks first if they're going to debate something. She can appoint committee members. She can schedule bills for action. She can send bills to the right committees. And as we already said, the speaker is the third in power. It's president, vice president, speaker. Okay? And she talks or he talks to everybody. So they have a lot of political power. If you need something done, you have to speak to the leader. But the House floor, okay, which is the rest of the people, also have leaders. You have the majority leader. They help plan the legislative program for the party. They direct bills to the House. They make sure bills are finished. And they're elected again by their own party. And we have the whip, like a whip like that. They help the majority leader. They watch their party and see how people are going to vote. They can persuade people, hey, you should vote for this bill, you should vote yes, you should vote no. So they're on the ground, talking to people and kind of saying which way things should go. And they also make sure people are present to vote. Okay, you need to be here on this day because that's when we're going to vote on something. The minority power has the same structure. Okay, they also have these minority leaders and whips and everything. They just don't have the power to schedule the votes. They don't have the power to schedule the votes, but the structure is similar. And obviously, they don't have a speaker. Okay. Lawmaking in the House. How does the House, and by the way, when we say House, we're talking about House of Representatives. This is the what do you call it? Abbreviation. Okay, we say the House. So if you ever go to Washington, D.C. and ever go to the House of Representatives, it looks very disorganized. People are running here, they're running there, they're running everywhere because they're in and out of meetings, they're talking to voters. And then on Fridays, usually they're going home because not all of them live in Washington, D.C., right? Because they're from all over the country. So they have the right, by the way, to have two houses, one house in Washington, D.C., and one house wherever it is that they're originally from. So the important work is done on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay, Tuesdays and Thursdays is when all the important work happens as far as voting and things like that. And Monday, too, is kind of a slow day. And how do bills go from committee to vote? I don't know if you guys remember, I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill. We used to sing this song with one of the US history classes. Well, first, the bill needs to be introduced. It's actually put in a little box. Boom. Okay. It's put in this little box. Let me see. It's actually, it's called a hopper. It's a mahogany box that is accessible to all near the front of the chamber. And then the speaker will send that to the committee to review. They're going to say, is this a good bill? Is this a bad bill? Should we consider it or not? There's thousands of bills that get passed the committee every year, but only 10 to 20% of them actually get to the House for a full vote, okay? And they have calendars set up that say when it is that we're going to have these votes. House Rules Committee. So the House Rules Committee is the most important of the committees because they're like the traffic officer, okay? They're the ones that decide whether a bill moves ahead or if it doesn't. And usually the speaker is going to put a majority of their own party in the House Rules Committee. What are some of the functions of the House Rules Committee? They can move the calendar date up on a bill. They can say how long a bill will be debated. They can say, also they can settle disputes between two committees. Okay, maybe one committee has something in their bill that conflicts with another committee. So they will go there and try to, what do you call it? Try to assuage this and make it better. For example, the Armed Service Committee may consider a bill that involves a subject that is covered by the Veterans Affairs Committee. So sometimes sections of the bill will be sent to two or more committees, a practice known as concurrent jurisdiction. So the House Rules Committee will sit with both committees and say, hey, maybe you guys can work together on this or figure out some way to make this bill work for everybody. And it can also delay or block bills. Okay, so if they don't think that a bill is worth it, they have ways to delay or block this bill from getting to the floor. When we say the floor, that's where everybody is. Okay, literally the floor. It's where you actually go in the chamber. Quorum for business. It's the minimum number of members needed for official legislative action. Okay, for regular sessions, you need at least 218 members to be there in order to debate and vote and things like that. But there's also something called committee of the whole, and that's when they just want to debate a bill or they want to amend something. Okay, it's not for voting. Then you only need 100 members. But when you actually are going to debate to vote on a bill to make it the law, then you need to have at least 218. All right, guys, we're moving on to lesson 3 of chapter 5. Okay, we're hitting the half-hour mark, so we should finish this. The last part of this chapter is a little bit faster than the first part, so we should be done in another 10 minutes, I hope. So what is the structure and organization of Congress? You can read that here. Okay, they debate on bills. Rules of committee provide strict procedures. The atmosphere is less formal, and the chamber needs 5 calendars to keep track of bills. Okay, so these are some of the structure. So the Senate at work. What rules govern lawmaking in the Senate? Well, the Senate, it deals with specific community interests, but they also need to know about national issues. Okay, so that's a big difference. Because remember, there's only 2 of these guys, and they have, and they're dealing with something for the whole state. So sometimes a national issue is going to affect a state more than it's going to affect a little area inside of the state. So they need to know about everything, okay? The Senate is smaller, and it's usually empty, okay? Because senators are going this way and that way. They're all over the place, except for in the Senate. Usually their assistants stay inside the actual Senate chamber. Senators can also debate bills for longer because there's only 100 of them, okay? So the rules are more flexible than the House of Representatives. The vice president is considered the president of the Senate. He presides over it. He does not, or she, we haven't had a she yet, but maybe one day, cannot vote on anything unless it's a tie. Then the vice president breaks the tie, but it's very rare that there's ever a tie. But usually the vice president thinks this is boring and they don't stay in the Senate. And because of that, we have something called the devotee, which is the president pro tempore, okay, short term. And he'll be there doing all the boring stuff while the vice president is off working with the president in more executive matters. Because remember, the vice president is actually part of the executive branch, not the legislative branch. The majority leader in the Senate keeps the party united, okay? Bills, okay? Their job is to critique bills from the other party, but it's not as official as the speaker, okay, in the House of Representatives. This is just the leader of the party. But they do have more power to make sure that bills get passed through because there's more of them than of the other guys. So how do you make laws in the Senate? Well, first off, you need a supermajority or 2/3 of the Senate to approve treaties, overturn presidential vetoes, to remove officials from office if they've been impeached, okay? For all the other types of votes, usually it's just a simple majority, 50 senators plus 1. But for the really, really important stuff, you need 2/3. So what is that? 75 plus 1? Or no, that's 3/4. My math is terrible. So 60 plus, okay? Moving bills in the Senate is less formal. There's no committees, okay? They just have a calendar of general orders that says when are the dates for voting, and the executive calendar, which schedules treaties and nominations, because the Senate also has the vote if the president nominates somebody for a job. We also have unanimous consent. That's a vote by all members to consider a bill. Okay? So if all members say, hey, let's look at this bill, it goes to the floor. But there's also a hold. It's a vote that says, no, we don't want this. So a hold can stop everything from happening. And senators are the ones that can do this if they want things to move a little bit faster, right? So you can have a unanimous vote, everybody says yes, but then maybe 10 senators say no, then the bill has to go through the longer process. We also have something called the filibuster, okay? It's a way to keep senators from voting. And how do you do this filibuster? It's kind of like what I'm doing. You just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And this keeps people from about the bill, and this keeps people from voting. If anybody likes House and Recreations, there's a funny thing about a filibuster on there, where the guy starts talking about Star Wars for like 10 minutes until people are like, forget it. We're not going to vote on this anymore. So in the old days, people would actually do it. And there's some filibusters that are 20 hours long or a day long. It's crazy stuff like that. Nowadays, people can still filibuster, but they'll do this by saying, oh, let's take a stop about this bill and look at this bill. So technically it's there, but it's on pause, and it'll stay on pause forever until people are like, oh, we can't vote on this anymore. It passed its validation. And we also have something called the cloture resolution. Um, and this means that for all practical purposes, any major bill can pass the Senate only if it can get 60 votes needed to end the filibuster. So getting these 60 votes are very difficult, especially in a Senate where neither party has a large majority. So it can force the majority party to negotiate with the minority to find a consensus and build a coalition behind the bill. So this cloture resolution is a way to end the filibuster by having 60 senators vote, shut this guy or girl up, okay? So a lot of people don't like these filibusters, because it's a way to just block things from happening. And sometimes bills would just sit in the Senate forever and nothing gets done. Okay, so some people actually ask for filibusters to end, okay, because they don't feel that these are democratic at all. So let's go to lesson 4. And we're going to talk about committees. Remember, the committees are groups of representatives that are working together to get bills passed and things like that. This is in the House of Representatives that we have more of these. First off, what is the purpose of committees? Well, in America and probably here in Brazil, people line up in front of the government because they want to be heard. Okay, and these committees listen to these people and decide what is going to move forward. These people are called lobbyists. So this cuts down on time, right? Because instead of they're having to go one by one by one and talk to everybody, they can talk to a group of these representatives and try to get some law passed. And also committees, they have the job of organizing this information and relaying it to the American people. So American people understand what are the issues, okay? What are the issues? So they do this by holding public meetings. So we're going to look at the kinds of commissions. I'm on lesson 4, page 2. What are some kinds of committees? And by the way, you can pause this if I'm talking too fast. Maybe put the YouTube in half speed. But if you have questions, you know, you can just pause on the page that I am right there and say, Phil, when you talked about this on lesson 4, page 2, I was confused. Can you help me? Not a problem. What are some kinds of committees? Well, let's go. There's a lot of them. First, you have a standing committee. They work only on certain issues and continue debating them for an entire session. Okay, that's going to be on the top here. That's basically what they do. The standing committees. We have some subcommittees. They're going to take small parts of the main issues and they specialize on them. Okay, so if we have something about, I don't know, clean energy, maybe somebody in the subcommittee is an expert in solar energy. So the subcommittee is going to study that, while the standing committee is going to study the whole issue of cleaner energy and how it is that we're going to have that now in America as a law. Of course, the majority leader is the one who appoints people from their own party to these committees, but they usually try to keep it at 60% their own members, okay? So a 10-member committee would have 6 Republicans and 4 Democrats, or 6 Democrats and 4 Republicans, however it is that they want to divide that, or whoever is in power. We also have the select committees, okay? These select committees are temporary and they study one special issue. Again, could be climate change or energy independence, but it's one special issue that's important for that moment. And they usually only have one session, but they can be restarted, okay? These are select committees. And then we have also the joint committees, okay? Joint committees is when the House and the Senate get together. It can be temporary or permanent, and they're there just to report facts and information back to the House and the Senate. Like, for example, what is the economic impact of an action that the government is going to take, like going to war, okay? These are joint committees. And then we have conference committees. So you can see the committees make up a lot of the House of Representatives. They're usually temporary, okay? And they confirm if the House and the Senate bills are worded the same. Remember, we talked about this in the beginning. Both the House and the Senate need to agree on a bill, and the words of that bill needs to be the same. And they are the ones that are going to do that job. So it's written right there, right? It's set up when the House and the Senate have passed different versions of the same bill. Its job is to resolve the differences between the two bills. How do you choose members? Okay. Well, we already said that the speaker is the one that mostly, but the leaders are the ones that pick their committees members. It's important for young lawmakers to get in committees because it upstarts their career in politics. They get a chance to get their voices heard. They can influence policy in issues that are important to all of Congress. So lawmakers try to be in as many committees as possible, but it's hard because a lot of these meetings are happening at the same time. And we'll get to staffers in a minute. Those are the people that are there when the lawmakers can't be there. And parties assign members, but also the lawmaker themselves can show some interest. and say, hey, I want to be in this committee about this, this, and this. Um, the House members tend to serve on fewer committees than senators, right? Because there's many more committees. Since committees generally meet at the same time, senators cannot physically attend all committee hearings and will come and go during the hearings. But sometimes senators are asked specifically to reform the committee process to reduce the number of their assignments. But they need to raise campaign funds, also encourage members to serve on as many committees as possible. And again, in both the House and the Senate, the parties are the ones that assign members to the standing committees. Newly elected members of Congress approach party members to express their interest in serving on a certain committee. What is the job of the committee chair? The committee chair is the leader of the committee. Usually, when you hear chair in English, it's the boss, okay, the manager. These are some of the most powerful people in Washington, the committee chairs. What do? They say when there's going to be a hearing. A hearing is to listen, to a debate on a law or a bill, I should say, that can become law. They set the meeting dates. They hire staff. They pay the salaries. They manage debates. Okay. Some people thought that they had too much power. So since the 1970s, there have been some laws passed to change this. The Legislative Reorganization Act of 1970, to be more specific. And it changed some things, like a meeting can be called without a chair. If you disagree with something, you have time to give your opinion. You have some advance notice on meetings, so you know when to be at a meeting that's important to you. And usually these chairs are the oldest congressmen or the ones that have been there the longest. Okay, there's a seniority system for the chairs. And that's it for that chapter or that lesson. So now, let's see, 45. We should be able to do this very quickly here. Lesson 5, the staffers. Okay, well, why do we have staffers? Because there's so much work to do that lawmakers need these people. One person can't do it all by themselves. So what do staffers do? They can draw up the bills. That means they can write, first draft of a bill. They have to stay informed on issues. They need to represent the constituents. They need to do research on issues. And why are there so many of these staffers? Because, hey, guess what? Lawmaking has become more complex as the country has grown, okay? One person can't do it all. So let's go. Page 3. Congressional staff growth, okay? Well, because these lawmakers can't be experts on everything, they choose staffers for specific jobs. Maybe a guy is a lawyer, maybe a guy is an expert in medicine, maybe a guy is an expert in agriculture, guy or gal, by the way. Okay, the staff grew by over 11% in the House and 80% in the Senate from 1977 to 2009. And there's two basic types of staff. There's personal staff and committee staff. So let's go into the personal staff. This is page 4. Well, we've got administrative assistants. What do? They run the office of the lawmaker. They supervise schedules. They give advice on political matters. They talk to influential people. Okay? So this is a personal staff. This is a staff just for me. Imagine I'm a senator or a representative. So I have one type of person that's going to do this for me. I can have a legislative director that can set an agenda, for debates. He can brief me means he's going to give me the information about a certain law. Um, he can go after resources. Okay, legislative director, he's a resource person. He's going to go in. If I need something, I need some books, I need you to find a law from 1954. He's going to go there and get it. He reviews mails and emails. Okay, so it's almost like a paralegal. And then we have a legislative assistance. And what do? They can make sure that me, the senator, is informed on all the issues, all the information that's coming out. They also do research. They can go to the Library of Congress, for example, to do research. They can draft bills. They can write the first versions of a bill. They can study old bills to get more information. They can write speeches and articles for newspapers and magazines. They can go to committee meetings in my place. Maybe I can't go because I have to be at this committee meeting at 2 o'clock, and there's another one at 2 o'clock. I'm going to send my legislative um, assistant. And they can also follow what happens on the floor in case I can't physically be on the floor of the house. Okay? I can also have a press secretary. And what do they do? Well, they draft press releases. Maybe they want to say, what is Phil doing this weekend? This weekend, Phil is going to be on Avenida Paulista giving a talk about blah, blah, blah. That's the press secretary. They can schedule a press conference when I need to talk to the media. They can answer questions from the media, okay, about what I'm doing. And they also manage my online presence. So a lot of people think that Trump sits in the bathroom at 2 a.m. sending tweets. Sometimes he does, but many times it's somebody else that's writing those tweets, okay, for Trump, but also for all the other representatives and senators. And last, we have the caseworkers, okay? And the caseworker is somebody that deals with certain cases from their constituents, okay? So it's much more specific. If they see that there's a very, very special case, then we have a caseworker. In the committee staff, remember, committees are big, so they need people that work there too, like office managers, secretaries, clerks, okay? All these people help to manage the office. Again, because the committees can be big, so we need people to take notes and do all these things. These people can also study bills, they can draft bills, they can write memos, they can prepare reports, or maybe they can be an expert on a specific topic, like a doctor, a scientist, educator, whatever, okay? So these are part of the committee staff. And we have supporting agencies to help the committee's work. Number one would be the Library of Congress, which is the largest library in the world with over 100 million books, journals, music, films, photographs, maps. It's the mecca of information. And you can go on the Library of Congress website and get a lot of good stuff, guys. I recommend it. We got the Congressional Budget Office, okay, otherwise known as the CBO, but I think I skipped one, which is the CRS, the Congressional Research Center. Oh, yeah, which is right down here. And basically, it's a place inside the Library of Congress that staffers can go and ask, get information. It's like the Google of Washington, okay? So if they want to know how many kangaroos are there in Australia, how much crime is there in Philadelphia, they go there and they get that information. And it's official, right? So yes, they can go on Google, but Google isn't always official. So if they go there, it's official government information. We got the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, okay, which is not a sandwich. And they study economic trends. They track how much Congress is spending. They report on the budget. They calculate how economic decisions affect America. So again, it's an information agency where they can get all of this data. We got the Government Accountability Office, the GAO. It watches how money is spent. They're like the watchdog. They're like the police. Okay, so they watch how money is spent. Is it being spent correctly? There's 3,000 members here. They prepare reports. They can testify in court. They can give legal opinions. So maybe Congress asked for 20 million to build some bridges, and they only built one bridge, and they said they were going to build 3, but they spent all the money. How did this happen? Or maybe the bridges only cost 10 million. Why do you need 20 million? Where did the rest of the money go? This is the job of the GAO, accountability, okay? And then we have the Government Printing Office. And back in the day of printing, it would actually print stuff, what happened today in the government. Now we're in the digital age, so it's just called the Congressional Record. And you can go there and get a briefing. It's like a newspaper of the government. This is what is happening in the government, and it shares its legislative information database with the Library of Congress's Thomas Information Service to track Congress's legislative activities, past and present. And its role is to be transparent. So let's go back here. Look at that. We did it in about an hour. It's kind of a long chapter, guys. So that's it. Okay. It's Saturday. My hair is a mess, so I'm not going to turn on my camera. But you should watch this video piece by piece if you can. Okay. And we will discuss anything in the video in the next after test, right? The week after. So guys, good luck on your test. Work hard. I will see you on Thursday.